The bread was cold. That was the first thing I noticed when I sat down at the table. Not the mood. Not the company. Not even the man sitting 2 seats away from my wife, who kept stealing glances when he thought I wasn't looking. No, it was the damn bread. Cold. Dense. Like it had been on the table for hours before we arrived. Which was strange, because we were the first ones there. She had picked the restaurant. Said it was low-key but elegant. Said I'd like the atmosphere. Said it was just a business dinner with a few partners she'd been meaning for me to meet. But when I showed up, 5 minutes early, she was already sitting at the table. Already smiling. Already sipping a drink I'd never seen her order before. That's when I realized. She wasn't waiting for me. She was waiting for them. And I was the add-on. Everything about that night was off. The waiter didn't ask if we wanted separate checks. He assumed it. She didn't correct him. She just smiled. She always smiled when she wanted to avoid telling the truth. More people arrived. Everyone greeted her like she was the host. One guy kissed her on the cheek. Another hugged her too long. They all introduced themselves to me like I was the new intern or something. No one asked what I did for a living. No one cared. But whatever. I smiled. I played along. I knew how to be invisible. Then came the sentence. It happened after the entrees were cleared, right when the table was buzzing with wine and false warmth. Someone was joking about relationships in the workplace. Who's dating who? Who's secretly single? That kind of thing. And Mariel, my wife, still wearing her wedding ring, still texting me, "I love you," an hour before dinner, leaned forward, rested her chin on her hand, and said with a little smirk, "Some relationships only exist because they're too boring to collapse." Everyone laughed. Someone clapped. I sat there blinking at her, trying to decide if I was imagining the weight of that sentence. She didn't look at me. Not once. She just took another sip of her wine and changed the subject. I didn't say a word. I stood up, left my napkin folded on the table, and walked out through the front door of the restaurant. Past the host stand. Past the valets. Past everything. I didn't look back. I don't think she even noticed I was gone. But that wasn't the end. That sentence didn't just end a dinner. It cracked open the secret life I wasn't supposed to find. And if I hadn't walked out that night, I never would have discovered what she was really doing in that office 3 nights a week. I didn't go home that night. I drove. For hours. Nowhere in particular. Just away from that restaurant. Away from the clinking glasses and her deadpan smile. The sentence she dropped kept playing in my head like a broken record. Some relationships only exist because they're too boring to collapse. Was that really about us? Was that really what she thought? Or worse, was it what she'd been saying to them behind my back for months? Around midnight, I parked at an all-night diner 2 towns over and sat in the corner booth, sipping burnt coffee, scrolling through nothing. I wasn't looking for answers. Not yet. I was trying to delay the crash. You know that weird middle space between denial and rage? That's where I was. But something had shifted in me. Quietly. Like a door creaking open. The next morning, I went home. She wasn't there, obviously. She'd stayed out after the dinner, said it was a networking thing when I texted her. The message was short. No questions about where I went. No follow-up. It didn't even sound like her. It sounded like a stranger using her phone. She came home just before noon, still in last night's makeup, carrying a box of overpriced pastries like that was going to make everything normal again. She didn't ask why I left. She didn't even mention it. Just smiled, handed me a croissant, and said, "I figured you'd be hungry." That was it. No apologies. No explanation. I didn't bite into the pastry. I put it in the trash after she went upstairs to shower. For the next 2 days, I played it cool. Polite. Calm. I asked about work. I cleaned the kitchen. I acted like a husband. But internally, I was collecting data, watching patterns, paying attention in ways I hadn't before. And that's when I noticed the locked drawer in her home office. It hadn't always been locked. In fact, I'd opened it a dozen times in the past when looking for printer paper or stamps. But now, locked. Firmly. That's when the seed of suspicion grew legs. On Wednesday, she went to her usual late strategy meeting at the agency. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then grabbed the old spare key ring from the basement toolbox. I was 90% sure she'd never updated the locks. She hadn't. The second key I tried worked. I opened the drawer and found a leather folder. Inside, receipts. Lots of them. Not for groceries or work expenses. Not even for anything scandalous. No, these were weirder. A wine tasting event in another city. A spa appointment at a resort I'd never heard her mention. A dinner bill for two at a hotel restaurant we'd never been to. On the night, I thought she was sick at home watching Netflix. But the worst was the last page. A printed itinerary for a 4-day branding summit in Savannah that I now realized never happened. Because I remember that week. She packed bags, kissed me goodbye, texted me every night, pretending she was at a conference. But according to the printout, she canceled her hotel booking the day she arrived. So where the hell was she? I remember sitting there, the folder in my lap, hands shaking, not because I had answers, but because I now knew the questions were worse than I imagined. My wife hadn't just drifted away. She'd created a whole second version of herself. And she was careful, so careful, but not perfect. Not yet. I put everything back exactly as I found it, locked the drawer, and went to bed like nothing happened. I didn't sleep, because I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to follow her. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never followed anyone before. Not like this. It felt stupid, theatrical even. But when Thursday rolled around and she left the house with her usual strategy meeting excuse, I waited 3 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed her. She always took her car. I stayed a few vehicles back, heart pounding like I was defusing a bomb, not trailing my wife down I-35. She exited earlier than usual. Not the agency. Not even close. She pulled into a parking lot behind an old bookstore downtown. Stayed in the car. I parked a block away and walked, pretending to check my phone. Through the reflection in a nearby window, I saw her. Just sitting there. Waiting. 8 minutes later, another car pulled up. Not Reed. Not anyone from the dinner. Someone older. Early 50s, maybe. Sharp suit. Gray beard. Balding slightly. I couldn't get a good look at his face, but I could tell one thing instantly. He wasn't from her world. Not marketing. Not creative. Not that curated group she'd surrounded herself with. They didn't greet each other like lovers. No kiss. No touching. But the tension? Thick. Like they had unfinished business. They talked for maybe 5 minutes. Then he handed her something through the window. She looked at it. Didn't smile. Just nodded. Then he drove off. Fast. She stayed in her car another 2 minutes before starting it and heading, surprise, straight to her office. It was like nothing had happened. That night, she acted normal. Tired, affectionate, made dinner, asked about my day. I stared at her across the table thinking, who the hell are you meeting behind bookstores? I almost asked. Almost broke. But something stopped me. Because I realized something else. That man, he wasn't just someone. He was watching his back when he left, looking over his shoulder. And that meant one thing. My wife wasn't just lying to me. She was lying to someone else too. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting in the car, staring at that man like they were trading secrets from a movie script. And the way he passed her the envelope, fast, cold, deliberate, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't even friendly. It looked like blackmail. Or business. Or something worse. The next morning, she left early. Said she had a team presentation. She didn't kiss me goodbye. Just grabbed her keys and left, like I was background noise. This time, I didn't follow her. I went to her car. Now, before you think I'm some kind of creep, I didn't plan this. But the night before, I noticed she didn't bring anything into the house. No bag, no folder, no envelope. She walked in empty-handed, which meant, hopefully, it was still in the car. And it was. I found it shoved under the passenger seat, wrapped in a plain manila folder. No name. No markings. Sealed. I didn't open it right away. My hands were shaking. Not from guilt, from something else. Anticipation? Fear? Rage? I don't know. All I knew was that this folder didn't belong in my wife's life. Or mine. I opened it. Inside were 4 photographs. Grainy. Black and white. Surveillance style. A man, not me, not the one from the car, sitting in a diner booth. Same man in all 4 photos, different angles. Same expression. Tired, nervous, slumped forward like the weight of the world was on his back. There was also a small USB drive taped to the last photo. That's it. No notes. No explanation. I flipped the photos over. Nothing. No dates. No writing. Not even numbers. Just silence on paper. What was she doing with this? Why would someone hand her this in a parking lot? And here's the worst part. The part that made my throat close and my stomach knot like a fist. The diner in the photos? I recognized it. It was the same place I sat at the night I walked out of the business dinner. The same corner booth. The same napkin dispenser with the chipped corner. But the man in the photo wasn't me. So why was it my booth? And why the hell was my wife in possession of surveillance photos of some strangers sitting where I had just been? Nothing made sense anymore. I sat in our driveway for 10 minutes with the folder in my lap, trying to figure out if I was in the middle of a bad dream or about to step into one. That evening, I placed the envelope exactly where I'd found it. I didn't say a word when she got home. She didn't either. She made pasta, laughed at a show we were barely watching, kissed me goodnight, and I laid there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was sleeping next to a woman involved in something far beyond cheating. Because whatever this was, it wasn't about love anymore. I waited until she left for work the next morning. This time, there was no made-up presentation, no over-the-top smile. Just silence. She grabbed her travel mug, gave me a distracted "love you," and walked out the door like everything was normal. It wasn't. As soon as she was gone, I locked the front door and pulled the USB from my coat pocket. I'd taken it out of the folder the night before while she was in the shower. She had no idea. I don't even think she remembered the envelope was still in the car. I didn't plug it into my laptop. I didn't trust that. I used an old Chromebook I'd wiped clean months ago when I was trying to sell it online. No personal files. No accounts. Just air-gap paranoia. It took a few seconds to load. Just one folder on the drive. No name. Inside, a single video file. Also unnamed. Just a timestamp. 2 weeks ago, Friday night. That was the night of the business dinner. The night she said that sentence that gutted me. The night I walked out. My hands were cold as I pressed play. The video was grainy, but the audio was clear. It looked like a hidden camera placed somewhere high. Maybe a light fixture. The footage showed the inside of a room. Small. Wood-paneled. A table in the center. A man sitting with his back to the camera. It was the same man from the diner photos. He sat with his hands folded, not moving much, except to glance at the door every few seconds. Then the door opened, and she walked in. Mariel. She didn't smile. Didn't say hello. She just sat down across from him. They didn't touch. Barely even looked at each other. It was like watching two strangers meet for the first time, except everything about it felt practiced. Cold. Like they'd done this before. Then he said, "So it's done?" She nodded. He left. He laughed once. That easy. She didn't answer. Then she took something from her bag. A phone. Old looking. Not hers. She slid it across the table. He stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. "You wiped it?" She nodded again. "Of course." Then she stood up. No goodbye. No handshake. She walked out like she had somewhere more important to be. The man stayed behind for a while, just staring at the phone like it was radioactive. The video cut out. That was it. No context. No names. No explanations. I sat there staring at the frozen last frame of the video, trying to slow my breathing. My mind was spinning. What phone? Who was the man? And most of all, what the hell did she mean when she said he left? She wasn't talking about the man in the diner. She was talking about me. That was the night I walked out of the dinner. She knew I would. Almost like she planned it. Like it was part of something much bigger than I understood. And for the first time since this all started, I realized something I hadn't let myself consider. This might not be about an affair at all. This might be about me. I wasn't planning to go through her phone. I know that sounds weak, maybe even pathetic, but part of me was still holding on to this warped sense of fairness, like if I go too far, then I'm the one betraying something. But after seeing that video, hearing her say he left, like it was a task completed, something inside me snapped into clarity. This wasn't about marriage anymore. This was about truth. She was asleep beside me when I did it. Out cold. I waited until her breathing settled, then slid the phone from under her pillow. Her passcode hadn't changed. For digits, her old student ID. She always thought no one remembered it. Inside, everything looked normal. Maybe too normal. Her call history was clean. Too clean. No recent numbers. No missed calls. No texts in the last 2 days. Like she wiped it or started using a different device. But in her contacts, buried between Monty, Salon, and Mark, work, was one that caught my eye. Maintenance. No last name. No company. No emoji. Just a plain number with no call log and no message history. But the number, it had an area code 2 states away. Somewhere we had no reason to ever call. I copied it down and put the phone back. She didn't move. I waited until the next day, when she was gone again. Same excuse. Meetings, brunch with a client, whatever. I didn't care. I called the number from a payphone near the post office. Yes, those still exist. It rang twice. Then a voice answered. Male. Flat. Almost robotic. Is it secure? He asked. I froze. Hello. I said. Silence. Then he said, You're not her. Click. He hung up. My hand was still on the receiver long after the line went dead. Who was that? What kind of maintenance needs a code phrase? And why was he expecting her? I couldn't stop thinking about the voice on the phone. The way he answered, like I was part of something. Like there were steps I was supposed to follow. And the way he hung up, not angry, not confused, just certain. Certain I wasn't who he was expecting. And maybe even certain of what I was going to do next. So yeah, I went back to the envelope. I waited until she left again. I didn't even ask where she was going anymore. I just nodded, told her to drive safe, and watched from the window as she pulled away, like I was married to a ghost who occasionally borrowed her face. The envelope was still in the car, still under the seat, untouched. She hadn't moved it, hadn't checked it, hadn't even thought about it. But this time, I looked closer. I held the folder under the kitchen light and noticed the inside lining wasn't flush. The paper was glued, but not sealed completely. One corner lifted ever so slightly. I peeled it back carefully, heart hammering, expecting nothing, and found something. A page, folded twice, tucked behind the lining. No labels, no dates, just a typed paragraph. No signature. But the moment I read it, I knew this wasn't part of a marketing campaign. It wasn't business. It wasn't even personal. It was clinical. Subject is not aware of the timeline shift. Mild dissociation noted. Behavioral responses remain within expected parameters. Phase 2 approved. Proceed with memory extraction under observation condition C. Final report to follow upon resolution or detachment. I read it 3 times. Every word made my chest feel tighter. Timeline shift? Subject? Memory extraction? Was this a prank? Was this real? Was I the subject? I looked around my own kitchen like I might catch someone watching me. I didn't even feel paranoid anymore. I felt like I'd just read a message not meant for human eyes. And the part that chilled me the most wasn't the word extraction. It was not aware. Because I wasn't. I wasn't aware of anything. Not of what she was doing. Not of who that man was. Not of what I might have already forgotten. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? That page, that strange, clinical note tucked behind the lining of the folder, had shattered everything I thought I understood about my life. About her. About me. Words like subject, timeline shift, and memory extraction don't just bounce off the brain. They settle deep. I stared at that page for hours, turning it over like maybe the back would tell me I was wrong. That it was fiction. A joke. A mistake. But I knew better. And still, I wasn't afraid. Not exactly. I was curious. When Mariel came home, I didn't confront her. Not immediately. I watched her like I was seeing her for the first time, and maybe I was. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't cold. She was just somewhere else. The way someone looks when they're halfway between honesty and obligation. So I waited one more day. Then I asked her, calmly, if we could talk. We went for a drive. Out of the city, down a long stretch of highway lined with pine trees and silence. I didn't accuse. I didn't demand. I just asked, is there something I don't remember? She went still. Completely still. No panic. No lies. Just a long, heavy breath. And then, quietly, she said, yes. That's when everything came out. Not all at once. Not with tears or drama. But with a kind of exhausted truth I hadn't heard from her in years. She told me about the project. About a classified trial, cognitive restoration, memory realignment, experimental timelines tested on volunteer couples. It was real. It was government adjacent. And we had signed up for it. Together. I didn't believe her. At least, not immediately. It sounded insane. Science fiction. But then she showed me the contract, locked in a file only accessible by biometric ID. My signature was on it. Dated 2 years ago. And the man in the surveillance photos? He wasn't a threat. He was a neurologist. Mine. We had agreed, both of us, to erase a specific period of our shared past. A trauma. Something neither of us could handle at the time. I still don't know the full details. She says they're stored somewhere encrypted, in case I ever want them back. But here's the thing, I don't. Because once I stopped chasing ghosts and started asking real questions, I realized something. It didn't matter what I forgot. What mattered was what I chose next. So we left the city. Sold the condo. got away from all the noise. She resigned from her job. I took time off. We started over, not as strangers, but as people finally ready to live without running from the past or trying to manipulate it. Some truths are heavy. Some memories hurt. But sometimes, forgetting isn't the worst thing. Sometimes, it's just permission to begin again. And I never thought I'd say this, especially after everything. But I'm grateful. Not because I was lied to, but because I finally asked the right question. And this time, when she said, "I love you," I knew exactly what she meant. And I believed her.